Hey everyone, this is Liam from Celtic Lion, where we conquer our mindset obstacles and elevate our mental well-being by forging our mental armour. In this video, I want to talk about something that all of us will probably be aware of, and it's that niggling little thing called self-doubt. Now, the biggest majority of people at some point in their life will have some form of self-doubt, myself included, and many people with a much more resilient mindset than myself. It does creep up, but there's a lot of things we can actually do. In this video, we're going to go over some of the techniques that I use or techniques that other people have used to overcome that self-doubt feeling. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is where it comes from. We kind of need to identify the source of self-doubt, and there can be numerous ways that it comes about. It could be past failures, experiences, or comparing ourselves to others. So there's a few different things in there that we can discuss a bit further. If there's been a significant amount of kind of failures in your past, it's very easy for the self-doubt to creep in and say this is just going to be like it was the last time, when that's not always the case. The great thing about failing, or failing forward as some people like to say, is that we learn from our failures and we learn from our mistakes. So just because something failed in the past, there's no reason to say that it's going to fail again in the future, providing that we've actually learned where we failed in the first place. And then things like past experiences, things that we've been through, traumas, anxieties, etc., all those sort of things can bring all that self-doubt right to the very surface. And the other thing is when we compare ourselves to others, which is something I am massively guilty of at times, and I know a lot of you will be as well. Because when we start to compare ourselves to others, we start to think that we should be where they are. But everyone's journey to their end goal is very different. And you see it with things like, whether it be you run a business, or if you're an athlete or a performer of any sort, when you start comparing yourself to others, you're not really focusing on what you're doing, what you could be working on. You're focused on trying to compete against that person. And one of the things I always say is, the only person you should really ever be competing with is yourself. Because if you're always improving and competing with who you were yesterday to be better than that person yesterday, you will always improve. Whereas if you compete with someone else, if they start to get further away, or what is perceived by you to be further away, it can raise a lot of those self-doubt issues. It can raise things like imposter syndrome and all that as well. So the first thing you do really is to write down an example of when any source that you can identify that provides self-doubt. It might be teachers, parents, family, friends, peers, whatever it may be. Write it down, so at least we've got an idea of where that source is coming from. Because if you really think deep down about where your self-doubts came from, I'm sure you'll come up with the answer. Next thing you do is start to challenge these negative thoughts. We want to ask, is this really true? The thing that I am doubting myself about, is it an actual thing? Because a lot of the time it isn't. It's just this idea of putting our heads with these kind of irrational fears, and they're not really based on fact. It could be when you start to step outside your comfort zone and challenge yourself to do something that's completely new, self-doubt can creep in. And that's not really self-doubt, that's just a bit more of a fear of the unknown. And our brains tell us that that's not comfortable, that we don't like it, so therefore it'll throw up this self-doubt of you're not going to achieve XYZ goal that you're looking to achieve. And a way we can go over that is by reinforcing positive behaviours with the positive affirmations. And affirmations is something I'll do from time to time. It's not something I'm massively a big huge fan of. However, they do work for things like this. So the whole point of this video is to give you different tools, not necessarily everything I do, but different options available to you to show which one's going to work best for you. Because it's pretty much impossible to tailor to everyone. Everyone's going to be different. They all have different ideas, and something they're going to do consistently when self-doubt creeps in, so they can move past it. So for this kind of exercise, just take a moment, write down a negative thought you've got about yourself, and then challenge it with some form of positive affirmation. It could be as simple as saying that it's bullshit, that it's not true. You can write down the self-doubt and then branch that off into other things that show that it's a pile of shit, that it is bullshit, that it's not actually relevant, that it doesn't exist. If you want to dive deeper into that, you can easily just ask a trusted family member or friend or mentor or someone who knows you pretty well. Because a lot of the self-doubts that we have upon ourselves, other people don't see them because it's this cage we're trapping ourselves in that we're trying to get out of. And we will always be our own worst critic. No one's ever going to be a more harsh critic about you than you. That's just a simple fact. Now, the other techniques we could do to eradicate the self-doubt is start setting small but achievable goals. And that helps build up the confidence, because self-doubt comes with being a confidence issue as well. So as much as you stepping outside your comfort zone, there's also that confidence in your abilities. And if that starts to wane slightly, self-doubt will creep in. And it's amazing, this little spiral can just jump in there and cause us to dip drastically very, very quickly. With fear of failure kicks in, the imposter syndrome kicks in, self-doubt kicks in, confidence issues kicks in. And what we're doing is trying to break that habit that we're falling into by using some of these techniques. So a good way to eradicate more of the self-doubt is to celebrate all these kind of small wins. And something I've been guilty of in the past is achieving something that I didn't think was a big deal, but in the grand scheme of things, it maybe was. Or my perception of that is that it wasn't a win. For some people, the biggest challenge is just to get up out of bed in the morning. That could be a massive win for someone. So just being able to celebrate those little small wins, and achieving those little goals shows that you're capable of achieving the larger goals. Because the larger goals tend to just be a combination of all these little smaller goals put together to achieve the end result. And I said it could just be absolute anything. It doesn't have to be anything huge. For me, it could be something as simple as like posting one video a week, putting out one piece of content a day, or maybe one piece every couple of days. Because then once you start to build that foundation, you can build on it. What a lot of people do is try to achieve the big goal far too quickly. And if they're not able to meet that because it's unrealistic, confidence gets completely wrecked, self-doubt comes in. Another good way to deal with any self-doubt is to surround yourself with positive people. Now, you're going to get negativity in your life. This is just fact. It's going to happen. But when you have a good positive environment you can tap into, that makes the negative stuff just kind of wash away so quickly. Me personally, I'm in several different groups just because of the energy you get from it and because of the positivity of people in those groups. Because I understand the importance of surrounding myself with the right people. And then still go about your daily life with the negative ones. It's going to happen. You can't eradicate that completely. Life doesn't have block buttons where you can just block someone and never have to see them ever again. It'd be fantastic, but let's be realistic about life. We're going to come across negative points. But if we have this positive energy that we can feed off of as well, then it's going to make the negative just drift off, wash away, whatever terminology we use. So I say there's loads of online groups, finding mentors, coaches, anything like that, people who are like-minded, people who've got the same goals in mind as you. Surround yourself by them and you'll pretty much just bounce off each other. It's interesting how when you have that community available to you, you can push so much further forward with your goals. This is the biggest one, the toughest one of all. A bit of self-compassion, be kind to yourself. Like, everyone makes mistakes and everyone faces challenges. Be a bit more understanding, a bit more compassionate with yourself and acknowledge the effort and the progress that you're making. And when it comes to the failures or where you've just fallen short, write it down and then write down why you believe that it's failed. Not just because you're a failure, that's never the case. There's loads of things that we don't have control over. There's loads of things it could be, but as long as we take the failures and we learn from them, like, nobody's instantly good at anything, pretty much ever. Some people will have some natural talent for certain things, but for most people successful, they weren't great at it or even decent at it straight away. It develops over time, because once you put out something or do something that isn't up to what you would say a good standard or decent standard, you start to see the cracks and the gaps of why it hasn't quite met that standard, and it's easy to redo it and just work on it again. So moving forward, what I'd like you all to do is each day or each night, write down 3 things that went well that day. It doesn't matter how small it was. If it was something that gave you a compliment, if it was just something about the day that went well, just write it down, take a note of it, and then you can reflect on that again the next day. I said it doesn't matter how small it is. It's just getting your subconscious, your brain into that mode of understanding your self-worth and your value, which a lot of people don't see and don't put out there. And I think that's one of the biggest things that self-doubt does, is it quickly removes all your worth, because you start to go into this, like I say, this kind of spiral. You start to think you can't achieve things, can't do things. When 9 times out of 10, that's not really the case. It's very different if you have got no idea what you're doing about anything ever and you try to jump into a space that you've got no knowledge, no experience of. Yeah, self-doubt's probably relevant there because you don't know what you're doing. So it's up to you to go and learn how to do what you're doing. And that's all it is with the self-doubt, is going and being more compassionate yourself, learning more about the things, and the confidence will build with it, because you can't build confidence without taking action. It doesn't just fall in your lap. You can't buy it, no matter how much you want to spend on online courses. You just can't buy confidence, go, here you go, you've got it. It's not like an upgrade or anything. You have to take the right actions to move towards it. Now, if you found these tips helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more content where I talk about more things like mindset and personal growth. And if you want to check out the website, you can do it. It's in the links in the comments down the bottom, or you can just go over to CelticLionDigital.com and I'll see you over there.